Prices are rising, the dollar is falling, tensions between global powers are escalating, and behind it all lies one powerful economic tool: tariffs. Governments call them protection. Economists call them a ticking time bomb. According to the Tax Foundation, tariffs could cost the average American household an extra $1,900 to $4,000 per year. Today, we're breaking down what tariffs are, how they work, and whether they could become America's ultimate economic weapon. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you're curious about how the world really works. So, let's figure out what tariffs are. They're just taxes on goods that come into the country from abroad. When the government adds a tariff, it makes imported stuff more expensive. That usually means people buy less of it, and local companies are supposed to benefit. Here's how it works. When a product is shipped into the US, the importer pays a tax. That extra cost either gets passed on to us, the buyers, or the importer makes less profit. For example, if a car costs $30,000 and there's a 10% tariff, it might now sell for $33,000. And this isn't just theory. Jaguar Land Rover already paused all shipments to the US for April 2025 to figure out how the new tariffs will affect them. Audi also limited its deliveries, and no one knows for how long. But tariffs aren't some brand new idea. Let's take a quick look back. In 1930, the US passed the Smoot-Hawley Act, which raised tariffs up to 48% on over 3,000 imported goods. The goal? To protect American businesses during the Great Depression. But it totally backfired. Other countries hit back with their own tariffs, global trade collapsed, and the world economy sank even deeper into crisis. And now, in 2025, tariffs are back on the table. Are we repeating history? So why did Trump decide to bring tariffs back? What was his administration thinking? To understand that, we need to take a closer look at how the US economy actually works. First of all, it's a consumer-driven economy. Over 70% of its GDP comes from services. Trade plays a huge role. The US imports around $3.8 trillion worth of goods, while exports total about $2.5 trillion. In other words, most of what Americans buy, electronics, clothing, food, cars, is imported. And that's where the problem lies: the trade deficit. In 2024, it reached $1.3 trillion, and that's one of the key reasons behind Trump's tariff strategy. The goal is to bring manufacturing back to the US and reduce dependence on cheap foreign goods. In theory, this would boost domestic production. But in today's economic reality, that's easier said than done. For example, factory workers in the US earn about $28.50 an hour, 4 times more than in Mexico. Plus, building new factories for things like semiconductors or batteries can take 3 to 5 years. Another reason for tariffs is revenue. These taxes can bring in billions, or even trillions, to fund infrastructure or reduce the budget deficit. And of course, tariffs are also a tool for trade negotiations. Just look at the pressure on China over the TikTok deal. But there are way more downsides. Tariffs could raise prices for consumers by up to 10%. Even the iPhone could rise to $2,300 because of more expensive parts. Major trade partners may hit back. China has already imposed retaliatory tariffs of up to 84% on certain US goods. There are also supply chain disruptions and a growing risk of recession, a slowdown in economic growth and production. Even JP Morgan estimates there's a 60% chance of a global recession if tariffs continue to rise. And here's the thing. Tariffs didn't just target rivals. They hit everyone. Basic rates of 10% were introduced on goods from nearly all countries, even close allies and key trade partners. So who really gets hurt? Small businesses, low-income families, everyday consumers. Imported goods get more expensive, local alternatives are often pricier or unavailable, and other countries respond with their own tariffs. So what could happen next? Economists see a few possible outcomes. First, to a long trade war with rising inflation. Inside the US, opposition is growing. Democrats are speaking out. Internationally, leaders like European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen are warning that these tariffs could damage trade relationships and global cooperation. Second, a soft turnaround with tariffs being reduced over time due to political pressure. For example, China has already introduced retaliatory tariffs, and also to the weakening of the U.S. economy. Even the dollar's reputation as a safe currency is being questioned. Deutsche Bank described this as a sign of growing global distrust in the U.S. At the start of 2025, foreign investors pulled $42 billion out of U.S. bonds, the biggest capital outflow since 2022. At the same time, central banks have started increasing their euro reserves instead. And the stock market? The market dropped, and billionaires like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, whose wealth is tied to stocks, lost billions. But Warren Buffett came out on top. His cash-heavy strategy paid off. By the end of 2024, Berkshire Hathaway was holding a record $334.2 billion in cash, avoiding major losses. In the end, we can say that tariffs are more than just taxes. They're political tools, economic weapons. So next time you hear about new tariffs in the news, ask yourself, who really benefits, and who's paying the price? If you found this video helpful, give it a like, subscribe, and see you in the next video.